Good afternoon, everybody. Lankavatara Sutra, Chapter 7, Self-Realization. Yesterday, we began this bit of the sutra, which concluded with some discussion about the intuitive mind, how it has direct dependence on universal mind, divine mind. While intuition, the sutra said, does not give us information that can be analyzed and discriminated, it gives us that which is far superior, self-realization through identification. Now, Mahamati is going to press the point for us and ask some further clarifying questions on this. Mahamati then asked the Blessed One, saying, "Pray, tell us, Blessed One, what clear understandings an earnest disciple should have if they are to be successful in the discipline that leads to self-realization? What clear understandings must an earnest disciple have if they wish to be successful in the discipline that leads to self-realization?" Now, there's some very important language that I want to bring to our attention in the question. Clear understanding. This is, as it says, you should know clearly. There are things that can be known. You should know those that can be known. There are some things which can't be known. You should be wise enough to know that as well. So in this case, clear understandings, an earnest disciple. You know, the sutra is pretty wisdom heavy. But here it brings up this earnestness again, the sincerity. And this is essential. I think this earnestness, this wholesome, honest, authentic earnestness is necessary because it's a wholesome, authentic, earnest disciple. Okay, now disciple here means one who has taken on the disciplines, right? That's what the word actually means. To be a disciple of the Dharma means to have taken on the discipline. So it can be kind of strict. It doesn't mean mindless slave or one who's given their power over to someone else or anything like this. It shouldn't mean that. It means one who has taken on the disciplines. But earnest is first. And notice it's not the disciplined earnestness. It's earnest disciple. And I think this earnestness is the cause of great auspiciousness. It cannot really be taught. You can cultivate it, but it can't be taught to you. I've had the fortune to study with a number of teachers, and very different though they all were, there was an earnestness. There is an earnestness there. It's not just the wisdom eye that's the same. That clearly is. This earnest quality. And you can't manufacture that. You can't fake that. You can't put on a mask that says, I'm earnest on it, and have that work. This is an affair of the heart, really. But it's one of the most important qualities that's necessary for discipleship. Not just doing the disciplines correctly. Because you can hide in that, and then this is not acceptable. The earnestness of your zazen is the key. And I mean minute by minute, breath by breath, instant by instant. Maintain your earnestness. Keep your spirit strong. If you are earnest and sincere, and you are engaged, this wipes away all obstructions. If you're not really earnest, if you're not really engaged, well, then you're not really doing it. And let's be clear, being earnest is not a mood. Okay? I don't feel like I'm earnest, therefore I'm earnest. Moods come and go. Have you noticed? Some are pleasant, some are painful, some are whatever. But the earnestness which the sutra brings to our attention is not a mood. It's not a mannerism. It's not some sort of pious affectation that you take on. After all, those are all masks. It's just earnest. Mahamati then asked, "Pray, tell us, Blessed One, what clear understandings an earnest disciple should have if they are to be successful in the discipline that leads to self-realization." You know the deep silence that's with us in this retreat? For Homo sapiens and humans to have access to that deep silence takes a lot of discipline. And it's happening. You create it for yourself, you create it for each other. People sometimes put all the emphasis mistakenly on the Doksan experience. It's critical, but it's not the main thing. The main thing is what's happening in this zendo, breath by breath. As the temperature changes and the sounds come and go and the wind moves through the zendo, the moods rise and dissipate. The meals, the chants, the blocks of sitting. That's the majority of it. Then there's the checking in. Now, the Blessed One replied, "There are 4 things by the fulfilling of which an earnest disciple may gain self-realization of noble wisdom and become a bodhisattva, mahasattva. Now, the word disciple in our way, in our practice, is used when someone is recognized as a shuso. Shuso means chief disciple. So this is saying someone who's at that level, let us say, how do they become? What do they do? But it's not just them, it's all of us. The person first time walking in, if they walk in with the right earnest feeling, in a very real way, they can be a disciple right there. And let's be clear, it's a disciple of the Dharma, of the Buddha Dharma, in this particular form, in our particular case. So, 4 things. First, they must have a clear understanding that all things are only manifestation of mind itself. And mind you, this is what needs to be clearly understood in order to be successful in the discipline that leads to realization. So clearly understanding it is not the same thing as realizing it. But you do need to have clear understanding. And the first thing the Buddha points out to us, as the sutra tells, is they must have a clear understanding that all things are only manifestation of mind itself. Second, they must discard the notion of birth. Discard the notion of abiding. Discard the notion of disappearance. We can add decay and death, just to be clear. You don't want to leave those out. Or even if you do, you can't. All things are manifestation of mind itself. Discard birth, growth, dissolution, death. Third, they must clearly understand the egolessness of both things and persons. Clearly understand it. And fourth, they must have a true conception of what constitutes self-realization of noble wisdom. Provided with these 4 understandings, earnest disciples may become bodhisattvas and attain transcendental intelligence. Again, transcendental intelligence, right? This is prajna wisdom. This is that which perceives true nature. Now, in our experience, what happens is you have a dharma eye. You have a hara, whether you've developed it or not. It's there. It might be undeveloped, but it's there. And the same thing with the dharma eye. But what the sutra is saying is that if you clearly understand these 4 things, then you have the right view, right understanding. And this right understanding would be part of the mundane right understanding that after the rest of the Eightfold Path is realized becomes so-called supramundane right understanding. Right view is where it starts, and it's the culmination of it. They're not the same, but they align. So, as to the first. As to the first, they must recognize and be fully convinced that this triple world is nothing but a complex manifestation of one's mental activities, that it is devoid of selfness and its belongings, that there are no strivings, no comings, no goings, no churn, no crises, no relief. They must recognize and accept the fact that this triple world is manifested and imagined as real only under the influence of karmic habit energy patterns that have been accumulated since beginningless time. That have been accumulated since the beginningless past by reason of memory, false imagination, false reasoning, and attachment to the multiplicities of objects and reactions to them in close relationship and in conformity with ideas of body, property, and abode. So, first, the triple world. What the heck is the triple world? There's some science fiction show right now, right? The three-body problem, the three suns, etc., meaning solar units, stars. The triple world that the Buddha speaks of, that the sutra brings to our attention: form, the world of form. That's a world. You should know it. You should examine it carefully. The world of formlessness. You should know it well. And the third is the world of desire. The world of desire, of clinging. Why is that there? Form, formless, desire. Well, form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form, and what's desire doing here? I desire to know. Remember earlier in the sutra when the sense minds were elucidated, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. And there it was pronounced very clearly that there's the organ of perception, the object of perception, and the consciousness which arises as well. And between those three, we have an experience. You, for example, see something. Eye, organ of perception, stick, object, and I, mind, or I, consciousness. And it goes on this way for quite some time in the sutra with this kind of orientation, but then it pivots. And then later it says there's object of perception, organ of perception, and desire. So this I mind, let us say, becomes I desire. Same thing. It's different labels to bring out a different flavor. So I desire, meaning your eye burns with the desire to see things it finds pleasing, and burns with the desire to look away from things it finds displeasing. Is it not so? Form, formlessness, desire. This is true of sounds. Sometimes people have a little trouble with sound. Sound can be vexing. But there's ear, hopefully, and there's objective hearing, and there's ear mind, ear desire. Form is empty, empty is form, desire binds them, binds you, makes you. So the sutra is being very specific about this. The earnest disciple must recognize and be fully clear that the entire triple world, anything of form, anything of emptiness, Anything of desire is nothing but a complex manifestation of one's own mental activities. That's what that is. What else is the obsession? The addiction, the elation, the win, the loss, the clarity or the confusion. Complex, very complex. If the Buddha says it's complex, you know it's really complex. And you know, for as simple as Zen seems to be, you know, just sit there, you're a Buddha, it's kind of complicated. There's a lot of ways that we get stuck, yeah? So the entire triple world of form, formlessness, and desire is nothing but a complex manifestation of one's mental activities. Eye activity, ear activity, nose activity, body activity, brain activity, egoic discriminating mind activity, storehouse consciousness mind activity. Buddha mind activity. In the end, there's no difference. But getting there takes some doing. This triple world is devoid of selfness and its belongings. There actually is no me and mine anywhere to be found. As strong as the desire may be, that desire itself, if you learn to look at it squarely, has no self either. This compulsion that seems so unstoppable, look at it clearly. There's nothing in it. There are no strivings. There's no effort. There's no purpose. There's no coming, arriving. There's no leaving in it. It's not to be found. You must recognize and accept the fact that this triple world is manifested and imagined as real, very much like a dream. When you're in the grip of a dream and you think you're flying like you've always wanted to, or falling like you're scared you're going to, or whatever, the big bad thing in the dream chasing you, or whatever it is, when you're in it, it seems real. But of course, it's just a dream. So it's real in a way, but the way in which it's real is not perceived correctly. You need to be very clear about that. I'm not saying that desire isn't experienced as real, but the way that it's experienced is false. See it clearly, and you'll see the no-selfness of it. This triple world is manifested and imagined as real only under the influence of karmic habit energy patterns that have been accumulated since the beginningless past. To hear this idea of karma, it's not just, it's not a kind of a throwaway thing. When you really understand karma, it's a little terrifying and a little inspiring, maybe equally. Karmic habit energy patterns in the storehouse consciousness of you, what you think of as you, accumulated since beginningless past. As I've been saying, you never signed a consent form, you never agreed. You gave no consent for this. And yet, since beginningless time, your mind, your life has the experience of these karmic habit energy patterns. They come at you from your parents, they come at you from your priests, from your teachers, from schools, from your friends on the playground when you're 5. And that's just this life, this birth. There's a lot in there. We take form, formlessness, and desire as real because of this habit energy that habituates us to a certain way of seeing ourselves, a certain way of seeing the universe, and who we are in it, and the meaning of things that we choose or that is pushed into us. Memory. Memory binds and holds. It's the accountant, the file keeper. False imagination, false reasoning. You know, the early suttas tell stories of the Buddha saying, look, it's like you're traveling at night down a path, you know there are snakes, they're poisonous. You step on one, you scream and run, you hit your head on a tree, you're knocked out. You wake up, daylight's there, and it's not a snake, it's just a little chunk of rope that was on the road. The bruise on your head still hurts, but there was no snake there. False imagination, false reasoning. And it's not about snakes, by the way, it's about me and mine. And attachments to the multiplicities of objects, attachments, clinging to the multiplicity of objects. And it also means clinging to disgust, clinging to being repulsed by. It's still clinging. False imagination, false reasoning, memories, keeping logs, keeping track, reaffirming what's already been experienced, representing what's been experienced, winding false imagination on top of false imagination with reasonings to sustain it. Dip that in attachment to things. And you've got a recipe for being stuck. Now, as to the second, they must recognize and be convinced that all things are to be regarded as forms seen in a vision and a dream, empty of substance, unborn, and without self-nature. All things exist only by reason of a complicated network of causation, which owes its rise to discrimination and attachment, which eventuates in the rise of the mind system and its belongings and involvements. The way the sutra teaches this, how the Buddha is expressing it here, is that desire itself is what gives rise to the mind system. Like it's before the brain is there. In the 12-fold chain of interdependent origination, this desire is kind of the glue that makes things start to stick and create and form. When the sutra is reflecting that here. Now, all things are to be regarded as forms, seen in a vision and a dream, empty of substance, unborn, and without self-nature. Now, the sutra uses this language a lot, and so does Zen. You need to see your true nature. You need to see through the delusion. All things that are seen of the mind itself. But you should understand that in this case, the Buddha is saying, it's not just objects that you see. It's not just visual things that need to be realized as unborn. It also is very much things that you hear. I think it's laid out this way because we're primarily visual. Like, visual stimuli takes up a lot of our processing power. And if you close your eyes, what rushes up to use that bandwidth, so to say, is what you hear. So a lot of times musicians or people that are deeply listening to music will naturally close the eyes to allow more hearing to come to be. So it's not about just confronting what's seen. You also have to hear your true nature. One must smell it. One must see the emptiness of the taste of the noon meal. And I mean the experience. You take salt and you put it on your tongue, and there's this whole experience that goes on. That's exactly the same as seeing the stick when I hold it up or whatever. Or hearing the sounds of the birds out there or whatever. The sense experience of tasting salt or sweet, bitter, savory. These two are in the teachings. Tongue mind, the mind of taste. There are other creatures on our planet that have, and they go out there and they taste with their tentacles, Ah, good, bring it. Smell is like this too. There's a deep connection between the taste and the sense of taste and the sense of smell. You should carefully investigate smell. You should carefully investigate taste. Carefully investigate what you see, what you hear. Sensations of the body. This can be intense. Fortunately, sitting in Zazen gives you plenty of opportunity to work with sensations in the body. Okay, I'm comfortable. Ding, ding, oh wait, ding, shit. Off and running. May your earnestness serve you. We're pretty gentle about it in this endo. If you really need to change postures, go ahead. But some places, not so much. In fact, not at all. Some place of training, the monitors are active. Because, their knee hurts too, and they're looking for an excuse to stand up. So you wiggle, they stand up and come right over. I don't really approve of this way of training, but I am somewhat grateful that was my experience for a time, because it actually did bring a kind of fortitude that I wish to encourage you to self-impose. I mean, if you really addressed every urge that your body presents to adjust and fix and rearrange and kind of tweak, you would sit there the entire time doing that. And it would never really be right. It's just a constant series of, a little more this, a little more that, a little less that. Oh, could it be this way? Could it be that way? Oh, do you know what I'm saying? Oh, you scratch your head, yes. Just don't do that. Just investigate clearly for yourself. What is that sensation of the itch on the tip of your nose? Don't play with it. See what happens if you don't play with it. What happens if you just examine it first? What if you encounter it from not your analytical mind or your memory? What happens if you encounter that from your Dharma eye? What about that? Something as mundane as a pain in the knee or an itchy nose. There's no way that could be a gateway to awakening. Or could it? All these gates, they come into the same place, but they come in differently. You need to be clear about the unbornness of every sense gate, not just what you see, not just what you hear, also what you taste, touch, smell, and also thoughts. You know, beginners hear from the very first beginning instructions: see it, acknowledge it, let it go. Come back to the hara, come back to the breath, come back to the moment. But at that initial guidance, most people's experience of their thoughts is that they don't experience their thoughts, they don't realize it. There's constant chatter going on that is unexamined and unnoticed. It's just how life is. Then you go to where you start actually noticing how active your fool mind is. And they're very real thoughts, and you see them, and you acknowledge them, and you let them go. And then you come back to your hara. You, them. But that's what you need to do at that point. And by the way, that can reassert at any time. But what is it to see the non-selfness of thoughts? What is that? What is it to be able to see a thought, to experience a thought, to think a thought without a thinker? There's no thoughtness there, there's no thinker there. What happens when the Dharma eye sees a thought? They must recognize and be convinced that all things experienced through all the sense gates, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and brain, by insertion, are to be regarded as forms seen in a vision and a dream, empty of substance, unborn, and without self-nature. All these things exist only by reason of a complicated network of causation, interdependent origination, interdependently arising. Your thought is not a solid thing any more than the sun is not a solid thing. The candle flame is not a solid thing. That breeze out there is not a solid thing. You experience it, sure. But critically examine how you experience your life. This is where the Buddha teaches. This is the direction the sutra points. And the treasure map is everything that you experience, and the X is right on you. You are the treasure, baby. You have to realize it. They only exist by reason of a complicated network of interdependently arising causation, which owes its rise to discrimination and attachment, that mind of discriminating and attaching, of judging and evaluating, picking and choosing. Well, here's a wise one, here's a fool. Yes, but in the way, there's no such thing. This eventuates in the rise of the mind system itself. It has a self-generative quality. And it brings its belongings and all its involvements along with it. Suitcases, I'm here, moving in. Did you ever look at your experience and go, where the heck did this come from? What's going on here? Like some weirdo moved into your house, brought their bags and their stuff and their knickknacks that mean nothing to you, whatever. And you open your kitchen drawer and there's a drawer full of, what is going on here? Who put this? Where's the toaster when I need it? Instead, it's a big rubber ducky sitting there. What's going on? This is your karmic storehouse. Many strange things. The mind system arises with its belongings and its involvements. Don't be fooled. As to the third, they must recognize and patiently accept the fact that the earnest disciple's own mind and personality is also mind constructed. Your personality, your identity, all the intersecting identities and their value, but really, what is it? What are they? Really. Not just the face the world sees. Recognize and patiently accept. And the word patiently is here because it's irritating. It gives rise to anger. Like, I've fought hard for this personality. Or I've earned these scars, these opinions. My way of moving in the world, I win a lot. Respect me. Patiently accept the fact that your own mind and your own personality are also mind constructed. That is, empty of substance, unborn, and egoless. With these things clearly in mind, the Bodhisattva will be able to enter into the truth of imagelessness. Holding no fixed image. The awakened mind is not tethered to any fixed anything. It moves freely. It's not stuck. It's a wheel that turns. As to the fourth, the earnest disciple must have a true conception of what constitutes self-realization of noble wisdom. So, first, it is not comparable to the perceptions attained by the sense mind. Your eye actually can't see it. Your ear can't hear it. Your nose can't smell it. Tongue can't taste it. Body can't feel it. And most importantly, your brain can't think its way around it. Now, all those things are it too. But when you run this through the mind system, it doesn't catch it. It can't. This inner turning about and realization of noble wisdom comes through the intuitive mind, from the Dharma eye. It sees the inherent perfection of all things. But in and of itself cannot be perceived by that logical mind. Once it's perceived, you can become conversant with it. You can speak logically about it. But you can't get there through that door. Neither is it comparable to the cognition of the discriminating intellectual mind. So the sense minds, again, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, brain. And then the discriminating intellectual mind, that's your ego mind. That's the one that feels like the kind of governor, the decider, the one that's in control, that mind. Both of these presuppose, listen to this, both of these categories of perception, of mind, presuppose, they have as a fundamental ingredient to their functioning, a difference between self and not self. Organ of perception, object of perception. It's out there, baby, and I'm seeing it. It's an ingredient in the thing itself, the way it's ordinarily experienced. Both of these presuppose a difference between self and not self, inside and outside, light and dark, up and down, yes and no. Good student, bad student. Wise one, fool. The knowledge so attained by sense minds and ego mind, discriminating mind, is characterized by individuality. Me-ness. That's the mark of that kind of intelligence. That's why it can't see it. Self-realization is based on identity. Remember, that's where the sutra landed last time. While intuition does not give information that can be analyzed and discriminated, meaning ego mind, it's not under ego mind's control. It gives that which is far superior, self-realization through identification. We talked about that at length. Being one with Buddha. Buddhas do not divide Buddhas. Being one with Dharma, with all the particular manifestations. What is it to be one with sound? What is it to be one with objects of sight? What is it to be selfless when you're one with objects of smell or taste? This is the realm of the Dharma eye. Self-realization of noble wisdom is based on identity and oneness. And identity not meaning like my identity in the world, it means identifying. Sameness, not separateness. Identicalness would be probably a better English word. Based on identicalness, at oneness with. There is nothing to be discriminated, nor predicated concerning it. In that space, there's no self, there's no other. But it's not just this like blackout. It's not like you're in full body anesthesia. It's not like that. You're there. You know, my teacher's orioki soup with a cabbage leaf roast at the top. In a way, he was there seeing it. But in another way, that is not what was happening there. Something else was going on. Self-realization is based on identity, identicalness, non-separateness, and oneness. There is nothing to be discriminated nor predicated concerning it. There's no talk being given right now. There's no one hearing it. But to enter into it, the bodhisattva must be free from all presuppositions and attachments to things, to ideas, and to selfness. So sitting, you may read some teachings that are completely correct that say there's nothing to attain. There's nothing to be realized. Simply sit and manifest Buddha. Completely correct. But to realize the truth of that, that's another thing altogether. It really won't help you to just believe that that's true and to just sit there and gut it out till the bell rings. Maybe you earn some perseverance points, or your stubbornness is affirmed, or to enter into the truth of yourself, you must be free from all presuppositions, even that one. Free from all attachments to things, to all ideas, and to selfness itself. So when you sit, again, sit earnestly, sit sincerely. Don't worry about sitting correctly. That'll come. Sit earnestly, as though you were dying, as though you knew that you were going to die. Memo, you will. So sit earnestly as though you knew that your days were numbered, that you were in touch with the fact that time swiftly passes by, and yet, at least in this moment, you are able enough and cognitively together enough to be able to be here and to be able to actually engage. This is a precious, precious, uncountable treasure. Use it wisely. The retreat's not going to end, you know. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. Just this one moment. Don't think first day retreat, last day retreat. Don't burden yourself with such machinations and calculations. Just earnestly throw yourself into your koan. Leave nothing on the table. Everything goes. Everything. Earnest, true, sincere. Embrace the preciousness of this moment and don't hold on to even that. Let it all go and just be your practice. For the sake of all beings throughout space and time, may it be so.
Yeah.